Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf here with you. It's Friday. We're going to have a fun show today. First, we've got Donald Trump talking about tariffs. You're not going to be shocked that he says something completely dumb. Then we also have My Pillow. It turns out some bad economic news for Donald Trump's favorite pillow manufacturer. We have Build the Wall donors realizing they've been scammed. That's fun. The Ben Shapiro interview from the BBC. I can't wait to do that story. That is hilarious. Then we also have, of course, more racism in America, courtesy of the LAPD. So that's fun. Lots of stuff here. Going to have a fun show today on this Friday evening. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Greatly helps us out. Without further ado, let's just dive into it. All right. We will start out with some tariffs. Now, President Trump is getting mocked on social media because he still doesn't quite understand how tariffs work. Now, the administration has just imposed a 25% tariff on $200 to $250 billion worth of goods imported from China into the United States. Now, I guess it's in the hopes that it will somehow help American companies and create jobs and fix the trade deficit, etc. Right? Yet, he doesn't seem to understand that tariffs are mainly paid by consumers. So, consumers of those goods, they generally end up paying the tariffs because the cost is, of course, passed down to the consumer. Now, that's evidenced, of course, by an early morning tweet storm in which he wrongly insists that, no, it's not the consumers that are paying for the tariffs. It's the Chinese government. He tweets, "Talks with China continue in a very congenial manner. There's absolutely no need to rush, as tariffs are now being paid to the United States by China of 25% on $250 billion worth of goods and products. These massive payments go directly to the Treasury of the United States." Yet, survey says that is a lie, a complete falsehood. That is literal fake news. Now, the Chinese, they're not paying the tariffs. And that money certainly is not going into the U.S. Treasury. No. American companies that import Chinese products, they are the ones who are paying the tariffs. Now, look, I get the idea behind protective tariffs, and in some situations, tariffs are actually a good thing, right? Now, the goal here, of course, is you want people to buy American, and you want sellers to sell American. I get that, right? Now, the problem is that American companies don't generally make a lot of the things that we import from China, which is why we import from China. And when American companies do make these things, they end up costing more since they pass the cost of labor onto the consumer, generally, right? That is, ironically, also what is happening with the tariffs. American companies who get goods pass on those costs to the consumer. That means you pay more. Lovely. Lots of fun. I'm not sure if that's what he was going for. But with Trump, I guess you never really know. Now, he also said this, quote, "Build your product in the United States, and there are no tariffs." Okay, sure. Look, now, do I want to see more stuff built in America by places who offer high wages? Yeah, dude, I am all about that. 100%. Look, I'm even happy to pay a little bit more for a product to make sure that the people working get higher wages and benefits and, living wage, right? But at the same time, there are a lot of people who can't really afford that because we don't have a living wage. We have stagnant wages. We have an increased cost of living. We have debt, consumer debt, out of control credit card debt, student loan debt, increasing costs of mortgages. We've got a mortgage crisis basically on our hands. So I can understand that people are generally gravitate towards cheaper Chinese-made products because they can't really afford anything else. Now, these are issues that Trump basically refuses to fix. He is not in favor of raising the minimum wage to a living wage to at least $15 an hour, which is the bare minimum, by the way. That would actually help some people afford American goods and actually allow for more jobs, more workers to have a higher standard of living. Now, that would kind of negate the need to have these tariffs in the first place. Again, since a lot of people are buying Chinese goods because they basically can't afford anything. They can't afford to buy more expensive American goods and support American jobs, even if they don't want to, or even if they actually want to. So I get it, right? And I'm not against tariffs as a negotiating tactic for trade deals, right? I am, however, against using it for the sake of using it and saying, ha ha, China. I mean, come on. If you're going to use it, then actually understand what you're using it for and successfully deploy it as a negotiation tactic. That is not what's happening right now because the president is not a very stable genius. And as evidenced by what they're actually putting tariffs on. If you look at the list of Chinese products that are subject to President Trump's new tariffs, it is not on finished goods that are assembled. It's actually a lot on parts and materials. Copper, aluminum, lead, zinc, metal gaskets, washers, all are not sold directly to consumers for the most part, but they're actually sold mostly to manufacturers that are making actual finished products. So when your parts are more expensive, then it makes it more expensive for American companies with American workers to maybe make those things. And at the end of the day, it also makes those things more expensive. So the whole thing is really counterintuitive, and it could lead to more American job losses. He literally has no idea what he's doing on trade. And so, of course, social media came to correct him, as they usually do, starting out with Axios, right? Who tweeted out, reality check, tariffs are paid by U.S. importers of affected Chinese goods, not by China's government or by Chinese companies. Importers then either raise costs in consumers, lower their own profit margins, which never happens, or both. Not only that, Pete Souza says, I guess you flunked Econ 101 in college. Oh, that's right. He went to Wharton. Oh man, Wharton's got to be so embarrassed. Michael Salerno says, tariffs are not being paid by China. Tariffs are being paid by American businesses that import goods from China. Then they pass those costs on to the American taxpayers. Honestly, have an Econ 101 book read to you or something. Because, look, we know that Donald Trump doesn't actually read. And when he does, he's a one-pager kind of guy. He only reads about one page. And then nothing else. I'm bored. I'm going to go tweet. More. Steve Malloy says, maybe China can pay for the wall too. J.C. Bradbury says, spoken like a confident D student in micro principles. What are you talking about, J.C.? No. Donald Trump's a very stable genius who has grades that are so amazing that he refuses to show us. I mean, they're so great. You know what would happen? Our heads would literally spin clean off if we saw how amazing Donald Trump's grades were. And that's why he hid his transcripts. Dylan Reeves says, he has still no idea how tariffs work. I would ask why no one has explained it to him, but I suspect they may have, and he doesn't listen. Well, of course. Terry Moran says, there's a blatant falsehood from Trump here. Tariffs are now being paid to the United States by China. These massive payments go directly to the Treasury. That's false and misleading. China does not pay a dime to the U.S. Treasury. Importers pay the tariffs. Simon Hedden says, I've never seen a president so proud of raising taxes on American consumers, which, look, let's be honest, you can definitely say that this is an effective tax on regular people, on consumers. So congratulations, Donald Trump. You have raised taxes on every single American. W.L. Lewis says, how is he still clueless about how tariffs work? And how is Wharton still not humiliated enough to rescind the degree they never should have given him? At the very least, they all owe us a very public apology. You know, that's a good question, right? Because we all know Donald Trump did not earn that degree. No, we know Donald Trump basically got floated through college because of his daddy. That's what happens to a lot of these people who are wealthy and powerful, come from wealthy families. They end up just buying their way through school. Why don't they just skip the whole school part and just let them buy the diploma, buy the degree, and just say, here you go. You paid $6 million for this. Have at it. I mean, you pretty much have the same result at the end of the day. And finally, Nick Jovanovic says, we are reduced to having to follow the logic of a complete idiot and to anticipate the reactions to this idiocy by machines. We are in the netherworld. I would kind of disagree. I think we're more an idiocracy than anything, but so far without the electrolytes. And damn it, I want my electrolytes. Okay. Seriously, though. Electrolytes are awesome. It's what plants crave. All right. Moving on. MyPillow, the company launched by Trump supporter Mike Lindell, is reportedly laying off at least 150 workers. Now, they've cited the launch of a new venture called My Store, and he said that basically forced him to lay off those workers. Well, wait a minute. He says this is an expansion, and yet we're going to have to lay people off. How odd. I want to give you his statement here. He said, I value each and every one of my employees, so this is a difficult decision. However, this is what is best right now for the future of MyPillow and to prepare for the launch of mystore.com. Now, again, if you are expanding your business, generally, you don't want to fire people. And he says, well, once we have mystore.com set up, then I think we're going to hire more. But wait, it doesn't make sense because he also said that later on, these workers, hold on here, these workers, these impacted employees, have been informed of other job opportunities outside of MyPillow. Oh, well, okay then. Now, Lindell also said that the layout of Minnesota facilities will be changing as he prepares to launch the new mystore.com, which he said will be an online store for entrepreneurs and inventors to sell their products. And again, that doesn't make any sense, right? Seems very strange, especially since he had previously claimed that the tax cuts that he received from Republicans and generally credited to Donald Trump were doing great for his business. In fact, last year, Lindell wrote an op-ed about how amazing these tax cuts have been for the business of MyPillow. He said, quote, after more than 500 days with Donald Trump as our president, with record low unemployment and a booming economy, which, by the way, he is now adding to the unemployment, it's clear, Minnesota, that we can rest easy. Oh, because it's a pillow. As a proud American business owner, I have seen firsthand the positive changes President Trump's policies are bringing to our state. Because of the president's historic tax cuts, I was able to give my employees an immediate across-the-board pay raise to help fuel their lives and advance their careers. But, well, not even a year later, but 150 of these same employees have lost their jobs. I guess they can no longer fuel their lives or advance their careers, or at least I'll have to do it somewhere else. That's not a boom. That sucks. And so I feel really bad for those workers. They didn't do anything wrong. Lindell says, as I mentioned, those employees will have other job opportunities outside the company. My guess is that Lindell probably just handed out applications to McDonald's and Walmart or something. But again, that sucks. Now, I don't know, but I thought the tax cuts were supposed to lead to expansions of business and the expansion of jobs. That doesn't seem like an expansion. It seems like a bit of a contraction. Well, that's really strange. Very, very strange. And look, they're not the first ones that have laid people off. I've documented a lot of the companies that have laid people off, despite saying, oh, yes, we're going to hire more, we're going to expand. If we get the Trump tax cuts, You cut the corporate tax rate down to 21%, and our businesses will just boom. And yet, apparently, this is what boom looks like. It's more like a bust. And then, of course, they're literally, like I said, getting rid of these workers. They're replacing it with a fulfillment and shipping center. And who knows if that's going to be a flop. I don't really foresee a lot of success for my store and my pillow. And I think that part of that has to do with politics, really. I mean, Lindell has essentially tied himself to President Donald Trump. Well, that's not very smart, especially where a large majority of Americans really don't like him. And in fact, he said that Trump was, quote, chosen from God. Oh boy. And that everybody loves our president, they just don't know it yet. Well, man, I must be hiding this super big secret from myself. I really don't like the president. But maybe I secretly do, and I don't know it. So I guess. He also supported white supremacist Laura Ingraham, financed an anti-abortion crusade film, and much more importantly than his business or than his political stances is his business. He ended up getting downgraded by the Better Business Bureau, his pillow, and they ended up getting an F for unscrupulous business practices, which included a charge of false advertising. They literally took the Better Business Bureau accreditation away from this company. Wow. That's pretty bad. Now, look, I don't like to see businesses fail. I don't like to see people get laid off. It's terrible. But it seems like Lindell just keeps asking for it. Now, there's two lessons here in this, right? For one, the Trump tax cuts, come on, more trickle-down economics. It never works. It only helps the very rich. It does not trickle down on you. And if something is trickling down on you, well, it's usually the people up top that are literally taking a piss on you. And two, of course, if you alienate potential customers, then it turns out you're not going to be successful in business, especially when you sell something like pillows. I mean, there's only so many pillows your dedicated small base of Trump supporters will buy. I mean, look, that's why you should probably try to appeal to the broadest amount of people. And look, you don't have to go to Wharton to understand that one. That's a business 101, not alienate potential customers. But that's exactly what you've done, what what Lindell has done. And I almost called him Chuck Goodell. I don't know why. It's exactly what he's done. Alienated a lot of people with some of his political stances, and that's just bad for business. So I'm not shocked. I feel bad for the workers, but hopefully maybe they can find a better company to work at. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a break early. We're going to get your comments. We're going to take your super chats if you have any. Then we're going to go into the GoFundMe scam with Build the Wall. That's fun. And then Ben Shapiro. You're going to love the Ben Shapiro story. So come right back. We'll be here in a couple of minutes around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so got some good comments, but first I want to thank a few patrons. So I want to thank David Joseph, Christopher Neal, Joe Andreken, Jake Z, Alexandre LaChapelle, and Rachel Ong. So thank you to all those patrons. You support independent progressive media. Thank you for keeping us on the air. Okay, now let's have some fun comments. A couple of member comments first. Martin Trammell says, almost every Trump supporter I've spoken to is ignorant as AF. Yeah, I have not had a whole lot of luck, although there's some that are fairly smart, but for some reason, again, this goes back to which ones and the reason, and there are the brick throwers, and those are the people that are like, I need change, I want change. I know they're a small minority of Trump's base, and they're the ones, of course, that have already turned their back on Donald Trump. And again, I've talked to some very successful people that have voted for Donald Trump and are like, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, other than, I just want to try something different. I don't want Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a face of the establishment. She's, what choice do I have? I don't have any choice, so I tried something new, and it didn't work out well. And again, those are the people that are most likely to have switched. Now, the ones that are still supporting Trump, there's a lot of ignorance there. That's for sure. Okay. Sarge Tech says to Trump, we bear the burden of your tariffs, the middle class, the rich can afford it. We can't, you idiot. It's true, though. It's true. We are, and we're all paying for it. Like the price of tomatoes, it's getting pointed out, is going to, go up because of tariffs. And here's the thing. Tomatoes are basically in everything. A lot of stuff. They're in pizza. Pizza sauce, marinara. Tomato products are in a lot of stuff. So a lot of food is going to end up going up in price thanks to these ridiculous tariffs. Let's go to Lori Guerin, non-member comments. She said, keep your gods in your heart, not in the public. I can agree to that 100%. Moreland Gall Amathar says, how do you lie in advertising for a pillow? It's fluffy. You can lay your head on it. How do you lie about that? That's a good question. There's a lot of the controversy was in like a so-called buy one, get one deal where it was like, oh no, you buy one pillow for $89. You get a free one. But then other outlets were selling the same pillow for $49. So people were like, wait a minute. Why would I buy one pillow for $89 and get a free one? So technically you're buying two pillows when I can just get the one pillow for about the same, for like half. Is that not technically just me buying two pillows? What kind of gross deal is that? That's not a deal. That's not a... So I was reading, extensively into this. I was like, what did he do for false advertising? What's the controversy with the MyPillow guy, other than the fact that he likes Trump? Oh, that's how he got his accreditation taken away by the Better Business Bureau. Because before, he had like an A- rating. And let's be honest, one of the things that he said that he did was try to give, ex-felons a second chance by giving them jobs. I was like, oh man, look, I don't like his Trump support. But if you're trying to help people that were in prison get jobs and, that's kind of a good thing because normally they're not going to get hired anywhere else. But then you dig into it, of course, and the guy's like a turd. And so, yeah. Okay, anyway. One more. No, that's it. That's all the comments. Okay, thank you for those. No super chats, so let's get back into the show. And we will go to the GoFundMe. Not my GoFundMe, but the one for the wall. Okay. Now, with President Trump's efforts to fund the wall, having been blocked by Democrats in the House, a lot of his supporters have turned to crowdfunding, which is a fascinating way to go, as a wall is supposed to cost anywhere between 25 to 70 billion dollars. Now, there was a GoFundMe page, and it turned into a sensation on the right and raised about $20 million. Well, now that's a decent amount of money, right? Now, the thing about crowdfunding is that sometimes you get unscrupulous actors that are out there to try to steal your money. It's happened before. There are definitely plenty of stories out there where people, for example, tried to do something good, trying to raise money for a homeless person, and it turned out being a scam. And then now they're all getting in trouble, going to prison. And so what about the wall? Now, obviously, funding for the wall is actually something bad, but is it a scam? Well, we're going to look into it. Now, this campaign was organized by triple amputee veteran Brian Colfage. Now, this campaign turned into a nonprofit called We Build the Wall. So that was after GoFundMe said, okay, we're going to send that money back because this is a ridiculous campaign. Obviously, based on hatred, it breaks our terms of service. And so, okay, we're going to give that money back. Now, Colfage says, okay, well, you know what? I'm just going to create a nonprofit organization, and then we're going to take donations anyway. Okay, now that donation is called We Build the Wall, as I said, and they promised to build portions of the wall on private land using the money that they raised. Okay, again, $20 million, decent amount of money, enough to live very well off for quite some time, but it's nowhere near necessary to build a wall with. As I mentioned, the wall would cost billions of dollars, and it wouldn't actually really be all that effective when you think about it, with only like, oh, we got a couple of sections built here on private land. Well, then what's the point? You can just go around it. So, okay, well, anyway, there's a lot of problems with this, it turns out. And some of them, many of them, actually stem from the fundraising. Now, so now his followers, or the donors, I should say, realize, hey, you know what? It turns out walls aren't cheap. And so when nothing got done, they started to get a little testy. Now, this is according to the Daily Beast, in a story written by Will Sommer, who said, quote, there is no evidence that any construction on the wall has even started, despite claims from Colfage and his allies that construction would start in April. Now, it is past April, it is now May, and still we have no construction. Nobody building sections of the wall, even on private property. Now, that has donors like Joshua Green a little bit upset. Green wrote in an email to Wright Richter, this is where this originally, the story originally appeared, quote, the lack of updates is very concerning. I almost said that in a Darth Vader voice. I find the lack of updates disturbing. Okay, anyway, enough of that. Now, he's not the only GoFundMe donor that's curious about what happened to the money that they donated. Since We Build the Wall blew their April deadline, writes Sommer, Twitter replies to Colfage and the group's Facebook page have filled up with very angry donors. Green also started tweeting his displeasure. One person who was not Green, Billy Costigan, says, why no updates on the status of the wall? I have a feeling that this is a scam. No kidding. You don't say. Seems a little scammy to me, but this is despite, of course, assurances that they were trying to build the wall. They're going to build the wall any minute now. Any minute now. Back in February, former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who was a member of Rebuild the Wall's board of directors, by the way. So Chris Kobach, not a good guy, claimed that the group was getting ready to break ground probably in April. Colfage himself went further, saying in a radio interview back in March that, quote, we're going to start breaking ground next month. The group had even promised to invite donors to a groundbreaking ceremony. Okay. So now, what's happened so far? Well, there's been no groundbreaking and certainly no ceremony. You can't have a groundbreaking ceremony if you haven't even attempted to break ground yet. It appears that this whole wall thing, not happening. Now, one angry Facebook comment, and they have a ton of them, reads, "Show me video of a wall being built, and I'll pony up my next donation." So now they're saying, hey, put up or shut up, right? Start building a wall, or else I'm not going to donate anymore. Well, I feel bad for you, but they already took your money. I hate to say it. They already took your money. You ain't getting it back. Where's the rest of my money going? Reads another. I have a guess. It's going right into somebody's pocket. I mean, again, I'm going from, or I should say, Colphage is going from what I'm assuming nothing, right, to an overnight millionaire. Now that is a heck of a temptation, and one that Colphage might not have been able to resist, given his history in running questionable GoFundMe campaigns. The Daily Beast notes that he was a prolific operator of hoax pages on Facebook, and money he raised in the past to help veterans programs and hospitals never actually went to those hospitals. Interesting. But even if he actually does intend to build the wall, it would turn out that that's actually a lot harder than you would think. Colphage and Rebuild the Wall's board of directors had apparently spent a lot of time in Arizona trying to scout private land to try to build sections of their wall onto. However, at least that's what they're saying, the Phoenix New-Times reported in March the vast majority of land on the border in the state is owned by the federal government, and people who own private land on the border told the New York Times that they had not been contacted by anyone from Rebuild the Wall. So there's not a lot of land for them to ask around. Well, then that would make it easier, right? Because you only have so much land that you have to ask people on. So you would be able to get around and ask people fairly quickly, hey, can we build on your land? Now, the fact that that hasn't happened, that people on the border are like, well, wait a minute. They want to build a wall, but nobody's contacted me about building a wall. That's very questionable. That said, in a Facebook comment just this week, the group claimed once again, we're about to build a wall, folks. We're going to be building. We're going to break ground any second now. But they could not give details on where that would be happening because they wanted to confound the libs. We can't tell you. We can't tell you where we're going to build it because then the ACLU is going to come out there and the libs, they're going to stop us. So we've got to be secret about it and build our wall in secret. Come on, man. Of course it has to be secret. Of course. Well played. Now, as for Green, he's a little bit tired of the lack of information. He said, quote, I knew Brian had some previous shady GoFundMe campaigns. I felt more confident when he brought on other big names to work with him. I haven't seen a tweet from any of them. Look, I hate to break it to you, Josh, but this isn't happening. Donald Trump's not building a wall. Neither is Brian Colphage. You got scammed, bro. Not only once, but you got scammed twice. That's gotta hurt. But hey, look, don't feel bad, right? Because a wall's not gonna fix the problem anyway, which I assume you would believe is the undocumented immigrants, right? Well, most undocumented immigrants actually fly in and just overstay their visas. And migrants, look, those migrants, for example, the people in the migrant caravan, right? That, Fox News people freak out about all the time. Well, they have a legal right to come in and cross the border into the United States so they can ask for asylum. They either have to be physically present in the United States or at a port of entry so they can legally claim asylum. And international law states that you can't actually block people from coming in to assert their right to claim asylum. So, hey, no physical barrier, right? Sad day for you guys. MAGA guys, you just can't bar people from coming in. We have these things called laws. But as far as the fundraiser is concerned, You know what they say. A fool and his money are easily parted. Okay. Let's have some fun, Ben Shapiro. All right. Now everyone's favorite fast-talking member of the intellectual dark web, Ben Shapiro, is getting destroyed on social media over a botched interview he did with the BBC. Now the interview was with British journalist Andrew Neil, and Shapiro was aggressively questioned over some of his rhetoric about people in the Middle East, Muslims, his opposition to abortion, and some other controversial topics. And I want to show you, and this is a long interview, it's 16 minutes long. The stories, of course, the link we'll have in the description will lead you to that video so you can watch the whole thing in context. And I strongly recommend it. It was a very entertaining 16 minutes. But I want to show you one of the amusing highlights where Shapiro starts to get a little salty. Watch.
Why is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you as a journalist are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? Is this so hard for you? Why can't you just be honest? Seriously, it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it.
I mean, why did you just admit you're on the left? I mean, why don't you just answer the questions that I asked? I mean, I'm a member of the really, really intelligent intellectual dark web. So you guys, you got to answer my question, even though I'm in an interview with you. Okay, wow. Talking like that, I could not do that very much. Can't do it for very long. Okay, so now that's fun. Does he not realize he's in an interview with someone else and that he does not answer the questions? But yet he is demanding, why don't you answer my questions? Why don't you answer my questions? Those are the questions I ask. It's a very dishonest network. Why don't you just admit you're just a liberal? This guy is not a liberal. He's literally the chairman of the conservative magazine, The Spectator. Now, of course, what he does in his interviews is he likes to play devil's advocate, which is fun. I enjoy that. And he asks really tough questions. He basically grills everybody. So that's fun. Now, Shapiro, he didn't have an answer to any of that. In fact, earlier in that, he said, well, facts. I have facts in science. I mean, it's a life. But is it a viable life? Is it viable on its own? Should it immediately have constitutional protections, even though it is entirely a life form that is dependent on another human being? To survive, cannot survive outside the womb. And that's apparently where this discussion is, right? But again, he is so offended by the framing that he apparently flipped out and required a safe space. And in fact, later on in that interview, he decides, you know what? I'm just going to leave. I don't like the questions, so I am going to go into my safe space. Watch.
I just asked you a question.
And I asked you a question. You failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me.
Why don't you
frankly,
just try and
I don't
answer
care.
the
I don't
questions?
frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this. But that's not the issue. You have a
Then
new
why the hell
book
are you
out,
interviewing
and
me,
it's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims that
Well, it'd be
society...
nice if you would quote it from time to time.
Your book is... Well, actually, I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again, if you would let me just finish the question. Your book
frankly, I don't
claims
think
that society
honestly,
is turning its back
sir,
on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah,
What are those values?
What
What are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
I love the dig at the end. Yeah, thank you for showing us that anger is not a part of American discourse. Oh, damn. I don't think anybody who's covered that has really talked about that little dig, but I found it really funny. Especially since he is so incredibly angry. So, look, as I said, lots of fun. Won't answer the questions. Demands that the interviewer answer his questions. Again, not quite understanding how the whole thing of an interview actually is supposed to work. And doing the typical Shapiro thing, talking fast, and then getting angry. All right. Now, of course, to be fair to Shapiro, he later on came out and did a sort of non-apology. He said, just pre-taped an interview with BBC's A.F. Neil. As I'm not familiar with him, and I love that, or his work, I misinterpreted his antagonism as political leftism. He termed the pro-life position in America barbaric. No, he did not. He said it was akin to the Dark Ages, and that's the framing that he put on it while playing devil's advocate, to be clear. And Shapiro continues, he said, and that was apparently inaccurate. For that, I apologize. Oh, he was antagonistic. But and I apparently took it the wrong way. I thought he was some sort of crazy leftist because he actually asked tough questions. Now, the problem here is that to Ben Shapiro, anybody who challenges him or asks a tough question and then presses him on his prior statements and tweets, which is what he did, by the way, called out tweets. He said, well, you tweeted this back in the day. You said this back in your column or your book or whatever. You worked here, and you can watch that interview. Again, 16 minutes long. I definitely suggest that you guys watch this. But he goes on basically to compare anybody who does that to a leftist. Oh, you must be a leftist. No, he's not a leftist. Now, of course, Ben Shapiro, I think he's used to softball interviews and being in the bubble. And look, he likes the Dave Rubin type of interviews where Dave Rubin lobs him a softball and he goes and he says whatever he wants. Well, Dave Rubin's like, oh yeah, I agree. Oh, but I'm just open to ideas. That's all. Yeah, I'm just interested in ideas, and I'm not going to give any sort of pushback at all. Will you make me a cake? Oh, you won't make me a cake? That's okay. We're still buds. Still best friends. Man. Look, I gotta say it. What Ben Shapiro does, not journalism, and what Dave Rubin does, not journalism. In fact, Neil is actually really close to journalism, and I actually wish that our anchors here were as tough on people, it doesn't matter right or left, as Andrew Neil was. Now, following this, Shapiro got mauled on social media because of it. Steve Mullis tweets in, Shapiro calls out noted leftist Andrew Neil, former editor of the Sunday Times and founding chairman of Rupert Murdoch's Sky TV. Oh, and chairman of The Spectator. Jane Merrick says, absolutely hooting with laughter that Ben Shapiro just accused Andrew Neil of being terrible, biased, liberal lefty. Fun. Charlie Proctor says, Ben Shapiro cannot handle the BBC's Andrew Neil, impartial questioning, and storms out of interview. What's the correct term? Snowflake. Oh, I love it. James Felton says, here's regular user of the term snowflake Ben Shapiro shortly before he ran away from an interview because he found Andrew Neil to be too left-wing. God, I love it. Wild Geerters, it's a fun Twitter handle to follow. Ben Shapiro going on BBC and demanding conservative Andrew Neil admit he's a leftist, then crying about how unfair it is to be asked critical questions about his book before running away from the interview shows how these American conservatives are accustomed to their safe spaces. And really, that is a bit of a problem. You have this entire conservative ecosystem that never really challenges each other. They all really kind of feed into each other, lean into each other. It's a media ecosystem of which likes I've never seen. And progressives don't do that. I've got, my own issues with progressive media and how we don't generally support each other as much as we should. But the right wing has no problem. They all feed into each other and make up a vast network. But of course, the problem is that it creates this gigantic bubble. And so when they step out, when people like Ben Shapiro step out of that bubble, they're like, holy crap, everybody's a leftist. No, they're not. And that, of course, is a ridiculous term to basically, or that they use to basically call anybody that challenges them or to discredit everyone that challenges them. Now, that works in right-wing media, of course. In their bubble, they're like, oh yeah, what a ridiculous leftist. I mean, you can't like listen to anything that guy says. He's a leftist. He's a leftist. But in the real world, it gets you mocked massively on social media and everywhere else. Again, when you're calling somebody who runs a Spectre, or the Spectator, and works for Rupert Murdoch, a leftist, it's ridiculous. And finally, let me give you one more tweet here from Adam Serwer. He says, quote, "These left-wing snowflakes demanding safe spaces are getting out of control." Oh, that's good. That is just the right amount of snark. It's been a bad day for Ben Shapiro, but a great day for America. And the UK. To be fair. All right. One more story here. So now we go to disaster. All right. Now, a black man is now calling foul after he was added to the California gang registry despite not being a member of a gang. Now, on Thursday, the LA Times detailed the case of a man named Brian Allen. Now, he is a 31-year-old dance instructor that was notified last year by the LAPD that he was being added to a database called CalGang. Now, that is a registry of known gang members and their connections. Now, wait a minute. When he found out, he's like, I'm a dance instructor. I'm not a gang member. Why would you add me to this? That is ridiculous. So now, what led him to being added by the police? Well, it turns out he was pulled over in his South LA neighborhood a year before, and that was when he happened to be giving a ride to an old friend from Crenshaw High School. His friend had a previous criminal record. However, after they were both questioned, they were found to have not been doing anything wrong, not doing gang activity, not doing any sort of illegal activity, and they ended up being let go. So no gang activity, no criminal activity, stopped for basically no reason, and yet at the same time, for some reason, Allen got added to the gang database as an associate of gang activity. Now, it turns out you don't have to have a police record to be on that, and Allen doesn't, but he ended up on that database anyway. Now, police argued that Allen needed to be registered because, and you'll love this this excuse, right? He was driving through his own neighborhood. What? Driving through his own neighborhood, which appears to have been listed as having gang activity in it, and because he was in the company of his friend, who was alleged, not proven, to be a gang member. And why was he alleged? Because he had prior criminal activity or prior criminal history. Wow. So now here's Allen's reaction to this. He said, quote, "I was just stunned. You automatically get cast as a gang associate, often just because of how you look and where you are." And of course, Allen is a black man. And so now, like I said before, he got put on that list simply because he was in his neighborhood, driving through his own neighborhood, ended up getting pulled over for no reason, so basically profiled, and he was with somebody who they thought maybe could have been a gang member. So they said, well, he must be an associate. He's a black person, so he must be part of a gang. Or it must be associated with a gang. Got him. We better keep an eye on this guy. I mean, come on, man. Really? Now it gets worse. the CalGang database has been accused of being basically a racial profiling tool. About 90% of the 90,000 people in the registry are black or Latino. And look, being on that registry, it has negative impacts for people's lives. I mean, imagine trying to get jobs or getting any kind of background check. And if they have access to that gang registry, oh, why are you on here? Are you a gang member? Are you gangbanging? Are you part of that gang activity? Oh, I guess you're not going to get hired. And not only that, but it's incredibly, according to the LA Times article, it's incredibly difficult to be removed. It involves going to court several different times, meeting with judges, and lots of money on legal fees in order to get yourself removed from this. So now this dance instructor, this guy, will be considered a gang associate for giving his friend a ride in his own neighborhood. If you wonder why black people don't trust the police or don't like the police, this would be one of the reasons why. Now, the LAPD will be putting in new guidelines. They've gotten enough complaints about this. So now, hopefully, this will reduce these kinds of errors, which are apparently rampant according to a state audit. Now, that state audit determined that the database was filled with errors and had lacked accountability. Well, no kidding. And so I'm hoping these guidelines will prevent more people from getting profiled and swept up in these things that could have real consequences on, like I said, employment, where you live, future interactions with police officers. Again, their ability to track you down and profile you, and all that stuff. So that's very negative consequences. Now, I want to give one more quote to Alan here to show basically how this has a personal impact, because that's not talked about enough, right? Yeah, I know it's very important to talk about how it affects, job prospects and things like that, but it also has an emotional toll, especially for somebody who did right. Now, Alan said, look, I grew up here, and people like me, we're always considered to be growing up to end up being gangbangers, right? But I didn't do that. He said, I took to the, I took to dance instead of taking to the streets. And now he said, I feel like all the right paths I took don't actually matter. Everything I have done for my community was to spit in my face. I mean, think of how that feels. For no reason. Being profiled and put in these databases and the assumptions, right? But you must be dangerous. You must be in a gang. You must be a criminal, a thug, a terrible person. All based on his skin color. I mean, you do something nice, you give somebody a ride, and it can ruin your life. This is what racism, institutional racism, does to human beings. It has to change. Okay. All right. So, that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. I will be gone for the next week. So we'll hopefully be back around the 20th. So that is the Monday after next Monday. So the whole week we're out. We'll be moving. And of course I'll be posting that to my Patreon page as well. But don't worry, we'll be back in a new location. Hopefully with everything looking better. That's the hopefully part. So I just want to remind you guys, I'm not going anywhere. We'll be back the following week, and I can't wait to do new shows. So for you guys. All right. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you the week after next week.